Morning.
Good morning.
Morning,
everyone. Mark, that's pretty professional, that video at the front there, isn't it?
It's made with Keynote.
Is it?
Just the presentation software.
Yeah, I'm impressed with that.
Fancy. Do you think it wants a stirring theme tune?
Yeah.
It does. I don't know how to get the audio to play. There is actually a track that one of my colleagues in Year 4 has done. He plays in a band, so he's done one, but I just can't. Got to get it to work to play through.
Oh,
so that's the challenge for next week, is to get it to work.
We'll hold the ride of the Valkyries or something like that.
They'll have to get one ready for BrewEd the Arts.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah. Ed, I'm enjoying your hair today.
Yeah, I'm not. I'll tell you what happened.
It's a little more controlled than usual.
Well, it's controlled by its own weight because the boiler's gone.
Oh.
Boiler's gone. I've got an engineer coming in tomorrow, hopefully, and until then, it's all sort of sticking together a bit, is what I'm saying. It's really not good. I was going to attempt to have a wash with a bucket this morning, but I didn't get there.
Boil a kettle.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
Do it on a hob. Go down the stream. Go down the
Graham,
stream.
mate, I've got a 13-year-old son. Can you imagine my pain?
Okay, Ned. Yeah.
Went out on Friday and oh dear.
Oh. Yeah. Are you stocked up on links?
Well, we both got Old Spice. Old Spice will carry through most things, won't it? For us, we've both been poorly as well, Graham. I was just saying to Mark before we started the show that we had to go and have those COVID tests.
Oh.
We were driving through like we went up to the park and ride on the Ring Road where I normally get my bus to London.
Yeah.
And instead it's like chicanes and you go down, there's people in high vis waving at you, and then they hold up bits of paper with their phone number on so you can call them and they'll tell you what to do without you doing the windows down. It's brilliant. It's like being in a Spielberg film from the 80s. I loved it.
I thought you'd been a bit quiet this week, Ed, because we've not had any pandemic music challenges.
Yeah, no. Start of the week very busy, end of the week bit poorly.
Oh, but you're okay now, yeah?
But I'm up and at 'em now, ladies and gentlemen. I've got the coffee. I'm in it to win it.
Ed has risen.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. And we've got some great guests today, haven't we?
We've got the best.
It's a really important business subject as well.
Yeah.
How have you found it, Mark, coming back?
It's so different. It's been nice. It was nice seeing the children, but it is very tiring. Monday was nice getting in. Tuesday I found a bit tough, but as it went on, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it's been nice. It's just it takes a lot. It's a lot when you're in from that and you've got all the children. But it's nice seeing them. Nice. It is tiring.
We found that it's been really, really tiring, not just for us, but for the kids as well. Yeah. It's the afternoon they start to wilt and try and fall asleep. Yeah. And I think we just let that happen. But the kids, I think the kids have been they're adaptable, aren't they, and resilient, and they've really got back into it. And
they have been brilliant.
And we've had, we've had talks about what it was like during the lockdown and shared that, but they've just really wanted to get on with work. They wanted to have an almost normal timetable for literacy and numeracy, and there's been lots of really lovely art stuff been going on around the school, which has been brilliant. So Year 6 is my bubble.
Yeah,
so I popped in
I'm Year 6 as well.
Oh yeah, and it's been amazing, really. But it is for anyone that does go back, it's extremely tiring. You've got to make sure that you look after yourself.
Yeah.
Were you feeling quite nervous about it, boys? Were you this time last week? Were you a little bit butterflies in the tummy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. Monday before school, before they came in, you just don't know, or we didn't know, whether you're going to get one child or 10 children or however many. You just, and they're there, and then as they start to come in, you seem to get the hang of it, and very much an easier, gentle day in was Monday, trying to work out, because you have to work out what's going to work with the children, and building those relationships with them was so important. Having a laugh.
Yeah.
Having a laugh and building a
So I don't know about you, Mark, we have like a staggered start to the day, so each bubble comes in at a different time. 5-minute things, and I'm on the gate, so I stand at the gate and let them in at the right time. Parents don't come on site at all, and then at the end of the day, it's exactly the same. It's staggered again, and as the kids come in, each bubble has the kids in the bubble have their temperature taken. That's all written down. It's the things are in place if anything happens, and I think that's all we can do, isn't it? Really, we can just be as safe as we can, coming in, doing what we can to check. And at times, it's been really weird. It's almost like when you're in the class with the kids, it's like this pandemic's not there.
Yes.
Apart from the kids.
Yeah, you almost forget about the outside world and what's happening.
Yeah, it's almost like nothing's happened except you've only got half the kids and they are sat on tables on their own. But at times it's almost normal, but not quite.
I don't know about you, Graham, but I know every day the children have asked if they could watch News Round. It's almost like they want to find out what's going on. They've always been one of those things that has been sort of wanting to know what's happening, and I don't know whether that's more alertness to what's happened.
Yeah,
but
we do that as a daily thing anyway. But it is, and I think the kids some kids as well. They're sort of worried about their parents and grandparents, and especially towards the end of the week as they got a little bit tired. I found I was having conversations with children that were concerned about people at home. So again, that's something you might need to consider.
You think they had to get comfortable at school again for a couple of days before they could start unpacking anything?
Yeah, I think probably they did, Ed.
Yeah. So shall we bring in
people in? Who have we got?
We've got Liam.
Hello,
Liam.
Good morning.
Morning.
Liam's up in Norwich, and we've got Toria.
Toria.
Hello.
Hello. Toria.
Yeah.
Loves the pad.
And then we've got the fantastic Jazz.
Hi, Jazz.
Hello.
Jazz.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah.
Would you like to?
Oh, he's gone again.
Oh, Jazz gone.
There we go. Back in.
Still here.
Yeah.
Guys, do you want to introduce yourselves? We'll start with Jazz first of all, and just tell us a bit about yourselves so that people know.
Yeah, I work in a school in Liverpool. I teach year 4 at the moment. And probably the reason that I've come onto most of your radars is a lot of the talk about children's literature and having diverse representations this week. So had some interesting conversations this week, particularly with Ed as well. It's been nice chatting to you.
Oh, it's nice to meet you.
Yeah, the stuff you've shared this week has been absolutely amazing, Jazz. Really has. So thank you for that.
Thank you. It's been nice to have to have a voice, to have people sort of listening at the moment.
Nice. Yeah. Something bad, something good.
Yeah.
Toria, would you like to introduce yourself for those that don't know you?
Yes. Best known on Twitter for my tiny voice thing, but also teach, funnily enough, which is my greatest passion. I am, I've taught all year groups in primary. I'm currently a year 4 teacher, but I'm actually doing a year 6 bubble at the moment. The school I teach at is a junior school on the South Coast, and it's a 6th form intake junior school, which has been really exciting, managing the theoretically 180 year 6s potentially coming back, as well as key worker children, and a lot of bubbles. Yeah. So it's been fascinating, and I think my head and my SLT are just phenomenal. Yeah. But yeah, I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Thank you for coming.
Okay.
And last but not least, Liam.
Hi. So yes, I'm currently a year 5-6 teacher in half form entry primary school in Norfolk. Interestingly, before December, I was working in a much larger primary in Thurrock. And before that, in a previous life, I was a secondary head of music. So I've had an interesting journey through education so far. And now I find myself in this lovely rural school. Taking care at the moment of a small bubble of year 6s.
Nice. And you came to the fore because you posted a picture of your setup, didn't you, in the hall?
That's right. Yes, it was amazing, the response from one one incidental photo. I must admit, at the time, I sort of stepped back, having dragged a lot of furniture out of my classroom and into the hall. And for just a moment, I allowed myself to feel quite proud that I'd built something which I felt was going to make a positive difference. And yes, it was incredible to see all of the positivity around it from so many people. So yeah, a huge welcome surprise this week.
Yeah, well done. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Sorry, Mark, go on.
I was going to say it's strange as well when the classrooms are different as well. You get that different atmosphere because it is. I don't know about you, but I know all the desks are grouped differently. It just feels slightly different. You've got to make it feel normal as well, in some respect, although it's not. Yeah.
I've been throwing up displays left, right, and centre just so that the children have ownership of the classroom, because actually I think it's so important that they feel it is their space, even though they've just come into it. So everything they've created, it's like, right, let's whack that up and let's whack that up and let's it's ours. Goodness knows what the teacher will think when they actually return to the classroom. It's not their problem at the moment, it's my bubble.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So are you actually in your own space, as it were, Toria, or are you in somebody else's classroom?
Because of the nature of our school, what they've done is they've split the 6 year 6 classes into 3 bubbles each. So we have 18 year 6 bubbles. And what they've tried to do is group them together with it. So one of my bubbles, I'm EE, from class EE. And so we've got 3 EE bubbles upstairs, and we're sort of just together. I love it. I've renamed them the Bubble E's, funny enough. And we're all together, and then you've got all of the various other year 6s, and they've done a really good job of managing to keep each class 3 bubbles in the same sort of corridor. Not that we can go in and out of each other's classrooms or anything else, but actually it gives you still a sense of community within that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find hand washing has taken up a huge amount of time? Hand washing. But it doesn't matter, does it? You know, we've got to do it. But hand washing has taken a lot of time.
But it's going, isn't it? You have to sort of go, you know, I don't know about the rest of you, but I've had to actually create sort of a rota. We have a system for who washes first and continues on.
Yeah, we sort of choreographed it on day one, and they've got it now. You just say, right, go and wash your hands, and it's a beautiful thing to watch. It's like an elaborate ballet of hand washing.
And it's the same in reverse when they leave the room as well. Yeah. A definite order to go in and out, and
Jazz,
that was. Well, we're not back at the moment because, as you probably know, a lot of the Northwest have just said no. We, I think, are looking to go back on the 15th, and I know that it's been excellently handled by our SLT. It must have been a nightmare because I'm part of a trust and there's 6 schools in there as well, so they've had to look at them all individually and make sure that we're absolutely safe. And I imagine it's a big stress at the moment with the R number raising in the Northwest. So don't know what's happening with that at the moment, but I know that there's lots in place and we're doing a similar thing, you know, obviously with the bubbles. I know it'll be certain people be in different rooms to what they're used to normally and stuff, but we just have to come together and get on with it. But from what I've heard from other friends I've got that teaching up and down the country, down south, most people are saying that the hand washing is making the days go quicker. So I suppose that's something. You spend so much time washing your hands and getting the kids in, and especially if you've got the younger ones, like early years, the reception year ones, it's like herding kittens, isn't it? So I can imagine that takes a large chunk out of the day, so you're never bored really. But yeah, we're looking ahead to the 15th and possibly going to open back then.
How many weeks will that leave you before the summer holidays? It gives you 4, is it?
It's about 4 weeks, yeah. It's not a lot, but obviously we have to factor in the fact that things were a bit different in the Northwest compared to
they are
in the UK. And if that wasn't taken into account, you know, we could have been a lot worse off than we are now already. So yeah, I know it doesn't leave a lot. I suppose it gives a little bit of comfort for, say, the year 6s who might get at least a couple of weeks with their friends before they obviously transition into secondary school. And particularly that sort of, I know we're going to have some nursery children come in, so it might help with that transition from nursery to reception. But it's just the best you can do in a bad situation, isn't it? There's no right answer. No one knows. Like, you couldn't have planned for this. So my head teacher, bless her, is doing the best she can, and we just have to thank her for it. She's doing a fantastic job so far, anyway.
Yeah.
I've seen that. I've noticed that with the year sixes. Like I say, I stand on the gate and see them coming in, the different kids, and that makes sure they come at the right time and try and socially distance. And I asked them yesterday after the first, Friday after the first week back, have you enjoyed being in school? And they said, yeah, much better than being at home. They've just wanted to be with their friends, haven't they?
Yeah.
Have a bit of routine and to be normal almost.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jazz, you carry on.
Sorry. It's no good for anyone stuck in for what's been 10, 11, God knows how long now. All the days have rolled into one. But for the kids particularly, especially those year sixes, they must be really anxious about that transition. They're leaving their friends and stuff, so they must just be gagging to get back in. I do really feel for them.
So I worry for children, particularly children on the spectrum, who've been thinking they're going to go back to school and it's all going to feel normal and life will be proper again. And they might be in the wrong room with the wrong people, with the wrong teacher, quite likely. And I worry about managing that for those children. It's not going to be normal. You're going to go back to school, but it isn't going to be normal. Has anybody had to deal with that in their bubbles?
Not in an extreme sense, but I know we tried to do as much as possible in terms of communication with parents, laying it out exactly as best we could. This is what it's going to look like. This is what the day's going to run like. And then as plans have changed, we've then communicated that as well. So hopefully not overwhelming the parents, but allowing them to have those right conversations at home, so that at least the children have some sense of what they're walking into.
No, I think a lot of time went into identifying those children who might need that. So there was a lot of thought was put into those children and where they might be and which teachers they would be with, so that they had a bit of security in that. But I know for a lot of children, certainly there was one child in mine who walked in on Monday, was not looking forward to it at all, because he didn't know which room he was going to be in, which member of staff he was going in. But by the end of the day, he was happy and happy because he'd relaxed. And so they do come along with their own fears and worries when they come into school on that first day.
They absolutely do. And I think I said to my children on Friday, I said, if you could give the person you were on Monday any advice, what would you say? And they said, I'd say not to worry, and that actually it's really good fun, and that we've had a lovely time, and you really don't need to worry. But I think, I know that, and I know you were sharing about this at the beginning, I know that I was so anxious last weekend, which is why I put the Padlet together for people, because I was really, really anxious. I couldn't get my head around who I was going to have, how it was going to look, the fact it wasn't my class, the fact that it was a group of children I didn't know, and then how it would all be managed. Because actually, I'm not being funny, but teaching when you have to be 2 meters distant from children is very, very different, because you can't just go over and you can't do that sort of quick feedback marking you would normally do, because you've got to be 2 meters away from them. And I think it's all of those things, just once you're in there, for anyone that hasn't been, once you're in there, all the pieces are put in place. And actually, it's like, I just want to reassure anyone out there that is anxious, don't be. It really, really works out for the children and for the adults. And I think everyone that has been bubbling this week has come away gone, oh yeah, actually, no, it's good. It works. But it is incredibly anxiety making beforehand.
Yeah. I know it is, because you can't just think about handing things out on the fly. No. It is, you have to think ahead. You've got to make sure, because every morning it's a case of making sure they've got the paper. If there's any photocopying that's done, it's done in advance. It's all out, ready to go. And the same with, we've got iPads, so they're all on the desk, and then so everything is there ready for them. And that takes a bit of thinking in advance.
We, I know, have put together like quite a bit of stuff to send out prior to opening. So I think we've got some like transition slides, and it's like your classroom is going to look like this. This is the teacher you're going to have. This is the group of people that you might be with. You might not be with your friends, you know, just to kind of sort of play down those anxieties, particularly for the SEN children. So I think those are going to go out on probably, I think it's Seesaw or something, just before we open, just to help give the kids a heads up of what they're walking into, because it must be really, you know, anxiety for anyone, particularly if for SEN children. But a lot of the adults, as you've said yourself, have been really worried and anxious about going into school. So you can imagine what the kids must be thinking. They're going back and don't know what's going to happen. It's all going to look different and strange. But I know that our trust anyway, we've done a lot of sort of thought into how we can manage that and keep it nice and calm and chilled best we can anyway.
So we prepared a social story and put it out, but I'm always very aware with that you don't know what the child's question is when you do it that way, you know. So you create a social story trying to think through what might a child find challenging, and you know, actually the bit that kid's worried about is where they're going to hang their coat, and you hadn't thought of that, you know, in all your innocence. So I had a child come into my key worker bubble, and he hadn't been in right through, and he was in for his first time, and he was shocked and appalled, and he was a tiny little boy, very, very, very upset, and he kept saying, "Where's my school? Where's my school?" And I'm thinking, well, you're in your school, you tonk. I mean, what? But to that little boy, the only bit of the school he knows is the nursery classroom. And when he says school, he means his classroom. So in the end, a more intelligent person than me took him down there. Nobody's been in it for weeks, so, you know, there shouldn't be any virus in there. I put his little name thing on the carpet where he could see it, where it goes in the morning, and he could get there, and he got his name and he put it in the basket because that's how they register. And then he was at school, and then he could start dealing with the day. And you just think, oh, little lad, dearie me. He's fine now. Once he'd done that little ritual, he knew that he was in the right place and everything else was okay. So there you go. You don't know what the concerns are going to be. So I suppose you just need to be really intentional about the warmth and the openness with which you approach it. So I guess we try to do every day anyway, but even more so.
Absolutely. It's about.
I don't know. There's a
welcome, being willing to answer any of the questions. However, you know, and to let them know as well. I think reassure them that actually I wasn't entirely sure about everything, and that we were working on this together and figuring it all out. And I kept, you know, and I said to them they had to write top tips for Mrs. Bono in order that she won't go wrong. Because I said to them, I'm bound to forget stuff, you lot. So give me some top tips, and that made it fun. So actually, all of those things they were thinking about. We've got this one-way system around school, and it's a huge school, massive school. And we went on this tour on the first day, in which we needed to work out the one-way system, and just made it fun for them. Because I think that's the thing. Fun and warmth helps to reassure the children.
Yeah, laughter. Having lots of fun and laughter that does. Yeah,
I think giving them some ownership as well has helped. Certainly with my year sixes, that actually this is something new. We're all experiencing it for the first time. And so what do you want this to look like? We know what we can do. We know what we can't do. But between those two things, we can make this whatever we want it to be. And I think that's a really positive and empowering thing to do with any group of children, to say, well, you know, let's create this new thing together.
Just out of interest, is anybody actually using face coverings in school? Just
no.
I know we're not.
No.
I cannot imagine teaching with a face covering on. I don't, you know, I'm sure there's people who do, but I can't imagine myself doing it.
I would find it really hard, because so much of teaching for me is about animation in my face. Goodness knows how I would, you know. And I think that's the thing. Children look, you know, it's all of those social signals that they get from face, from hand gestures and everything else. I think if this was covered, I'm not convinced that you would necessarily get the same sort of level of connection. I just think for me, I would find it really challenging.
Another question we had in the comments, which I thought was interesting, was Rich was talking about that he says, have you honestly managed to stay 2 meters away? I just couldn't do it. It's just so easy to reach for something. I don't know if every school's risk assessment has insisted on the 2 meter gap within the bubble. I know in our early years bubbles, they said, like, once you're in the bubble, you're in the bubble. You're not going to stop the early years children from touching each other. So we'll limit, within the bubble. We'll try and make it feel normal, and we'll be very, very, very rigorous at keeping them away from other bubbles. And I don't know if anybody's decided that that's a sensible route to take further up the school. I certainly think into year 1 and year 2, I'd be thinking it would be extraordinary to ask a child that small not to touch their friend. I don't see how you could do it. I don't know where that stops for you, but I don't know. There might be year 6 bubbles out there where they have made the same decision.
I think we've made it really clear to parents that we can't guarantee any of this, that this is what we're trying to accomplish, but there's absolutely no way of guaranteeing that at no point in the day is your child going to be 2 meters apart from everybody else in the building. But I think it's a sensible place to start from. And I think that there are lots of shades in between being 2 meters away and breathing in someone's face. And it's about using your judgment and thinking, okay, what is and isn't safe to be doing. And I think, I haven't been walking around with 2 meter sticks taped together all day. I've got some sense of what 2 meters looks like. And I'm particularly conscious not to be sort of face to face with someone at their level. I think there's a lot to be said, and I think this is where I know in conversations with a lot of early years teachers who are used to getting down to floor level, being in very close proximity, that's a huge habit to break. But I think tiny tweaks like remembering that I'm not going to bob down to a desk in the way that I might normally, but that I can actually get within close enough proximity to see what they've written and comment on it. I think that there's a lot in between 2 meters apart and extreme risk.
Sorry, Toria.
I would agree completely. And I think the most interesting thing for me is telling children to forget some of the kindness, this sounds strange, that they've done. One of my children dropped their tray on the floor the other day because they've got all of their resources in a tray and they dropped it. And I had to tell the other children not to help pick it up because it's those sort of things. And it's just like, that sort of, okay, I'm really sorry, I can't help you. You've got to pick it up yourself. And it is, but I would completely agree that 2 meters is the ideal, but it is really, really challenging. Within a classroom environment, you can sit the children 2 meters apart, but actually, if they're getting up to wash their hands, potentially, are they actually walking 2 meters away from the other child? It is as much as possible.
Have you had one-to-one TAs in bubbles?
We do have a one-to-one TA in one of the other bubbles, yes.
And how's that worked?
I haven't been in the bubble, so I haven't necessarily seen, but when I've seen them walking around together, there has been a space between them, per se. But I think for certain children, that would be really challenging because they're so used to that person sitting right beside them. Yeah,
elbow to elbow. Yeah,
absolutely.
What's been difficult with it, because out of all the year groups, I think year 6s are the ones that have found it hardest because outside of school, a lot of them are still seeing each other because they're neighbours or because they're friends, their families are friends, etc., etc. So when they come into school, asking them to try and stay 2 meters apart has been quite difficult. And of course, they just want, it's human interaction, isn't it? It's really hard not to go in and give somebody a hug or, it's difficult. I know I'm finding it difficult not to hug my colleagues. I like a hug.
It is, and I think we are a society in which we do hug an awful lot, and I think it is very, very different when you go and see people that you haven't seen for a while, and you're just sort of having to wave at them. Staff room as well. I don't know about all of you with your staff rooms, but most bizarre lunches nowadays where you're all seated 2 meters apart and you're sort of having these weird conversations across the entire staff room. Very odd.
Yeah, we found though, because we have like different staff rooms with different bubbles now, but in a funny way, it sort of brought us together more. So we're sort of interacting in different ways and from afar and things like that. But I think it's been, although it's been an awful time, it's brought us as a staff closer together.
Yeah. I know we've sort of ended up with different times. Most of our pods have got 2 adults in, so you can go off and have a coffee at different times or go and get a drink or that. But you have to find at the end of the day that you stood in doorways chatting across the corridors and sharing experiences. How's it been today?
I think that's one of the hardest things, because teachers naturally pop in and out of each other's classroom at the end of the day to talk about things and share resources, and you can't do that. That has been, for me, one of the biggest things to get my head around, that actually I can stand in a corridor, but I can't actually go into someone else's room to see what their children have been doing.
Yeah.
That's where things like Class Dojo and School Story and things are so important, because you can photograph children's work and what you've been doing in the classroom and share it on School Story, not just for the parents, but for other teachers to see what's been going on as well.
What's School Story? Tell me about. I don't know that platform.
It's called Class Dojo.
I know. All right. So it's School Story part of Dojo, is it?
Yeah, it's like Facebook, but it's just for the people within school. So you can share photos on there, you can share documents, videos, etc. It's brilliant. It really is fantastic. And what we found, going off a little bit, because we use School Story and Class Dojo and things, parents know what's going on in school, so that when kids go home and say, "What have you done today?" and they turn around and say nothing, which quite often they will, parents are aware of what's happened. Plus, it's been a brilliant communication tool as well.
Nice.
Because you can communicate at a class level, but also as a whole school level as well. And as a parent, message parents individually as well. So, it's really good. Anyone that's not got it or not using it, I implore you to use it. It's fantastic.
I think now that we've got children back, we've got an extra layer of complexity as well. Some class members still at home whilst others are in school. Yes. Even those that are in school might be in different classrooms. And I think there's a real piece of work to be done in joining the dots between those groups and not making those that are still at home feel like they've been cast adrift. And I think that's ongoing. I haven't got my head around exactly how I'm going to achieve that. But being that mine is a year 5-6 class, half of my class aren't eligible to be in the school, aside from a couple of year 5s that are in the key worker bubble. And so, I feel like I'm splitting myself in 3 at times to work out how I can still reassure everyone that they've still got a teacher, they've still got a class, and everyone's part of the same thing.
We video call the children at home, and so we've carried that on this week. So each bubble has set up a go-to meeting. Children from home can join in, but we've also had our children that are in joining in as well, so that children in school and children out of school can interact and talk to each other. And we do little quizzes and challenges and things like that, and the children feel like they're more part of the school. Plus, we've carried on with the phone calls home, etc. So that's really good as well.
I think those video calls are really important. I had on Thursday 2 children sitting at a laptop in the key worker bubble, mine in the classroom, and those that could make it from home. I think I really hope that in areas where local authorities have taken a very quick and severe line on video calling, that might be reviewed as things roll on, because I think it's a shame that in some parts of the country, I know, there is just none of that video taking place. And I think that's a real shame that we haven't got everybody looking at how we make something so valuable safe, rather than just saying, don't take the risk.
So how do you manage it? Because, I mean, there are massive safeguarding issues around that. How do you manage them?
Well, to be honest, Ed, go-to meetings really safe. It's not like Zoom that anybody else can like join in on. Go-to meeting, you generate a meeting, with the software. It's all browser based. And then we dojo that. We send that to our parents, whichever class you're in. So they are the only ones that get access to that. And then they come on and join in. We've had no problems at all. The kids have absolutely loved it. And the parents, to be honest, they feel they're part of the school. In fact, one of our TAs this week, who has intervention groups, she started using GoToMeetings with her intervention groups at home.
Great.
She's every day at 11 o'clock, she'll have a GoToMeeting with her class, and she'll do handwriting or she'll do phonics. And one parent this week, she put on Facebook, replied to our school Facebook group, "Thank you so much. Lily's really felt part of the school because of what's happened this week. She's really missed everyone, etc. But she's felt more part of the school because of that." So, yeah, it's worked well. I just think you've got to try these things, haven't you, and be as safe as you can. I think the positives outweigh possible negatives.
Have you been using something like that, Jazz? Now you're off for at least another 2 weeks. So.
Yeah, we've been using Zoom right the way through. To be fair, we haven't seemed to have any issues with it. I know a lot of people on Twitter have said that their schools won't allow them to do it, and I feel really bad for them because it's kept that connection really strong between me and the class. And like, we have ours at the same time every week. We do it on a Friday afternoon, and it's kind of like our debrief for the week. So what have you been up to? Or you've had great maths work on Seesaw this week. You've done this. And we do our Mindset Hero as well. So I'll get their certificate. And it's just a nice sort of chat. It just keeps the morale up. You know, I think the worst part of all of this has just been keeping everyone's morale up. You know, sort of messages from kids like, "Oh, I just want to be back in school." And I'm like, "I know, I'm so sorry." But in terms of safeguarding, we spoke to the parents about it, and a lot of the time the parents are there in the video. We've made sure that there's 2 staff. So I would never go into a Zoom meeting with my class alone or any child. It'd always be with another member of staff, usually my LSA, Kelly. And I, just to make it flow a bit better, will like set them a challenge or something beforehand. Like, today you're going to share a joke, so you've got to go and learn a joke to tell everybody, or we'll have a quiz, or we play bingo, and I sent prizes to them, and some of them had never had a letter before, so it was, you know, it was something to talk about and just something nice to keep them all going. So I think we'd have probably been really lost if we didn't get to do that. And we've just been sending the link via our parent app, so it's just going directly to the parents. Nobody else can get in. Obviously, it's got the password and everything. But yeah, I know a lot of people have been concerned about the safeguarding issue for it, but I do think, like you said, if you don't try it, you know, you won't know the best way to go. And I think it's been a really, really good thing for us, for our school anyway.
I think that point of having another adult in the room with you, I think, is a huge one. I think it should allay most fears.
Yeah.
And like I said, sorry, what did you say?
Go for it.
Ed.
Who, me?
Yeah.
A lot of the parents have joined as well. So I mean, they might not be in the camera, but they're sort of in the background. Yeah. And I've had like parents giving them the answers to the quiz and everything. I'm like, hey, I'm in the background. But yeah, it's been nice because you know, they've kind of gotten on board, and it gives them a sort of insight into what their kids are like at school and what they get. Their friendship groups and how we talk to each other and the things that we talk about. So I think that's been nice to kind of get the parents in on it too.
Yeah, we've had parents, siblings, and pets. That they normally join it.
Yeah. Yeah. We've had a Hoover in mine as well. We've had a Hoover going.
That point about it giving the parents and carers sort of a little window into what your relationship with their children is really like is a really good one, actually, which I hadn't thought about. I think, yeah, you often, when you're at a parents' evening, you feel like you're talking about different children, don't you? So that would be a really good way to say, oh, I see. I've been having some great conversations with parents on the phone when I pick them up with who are kind of seeing my point a little more.
Yeah, oh, actually, some very interesting chats.
So do you find she's a little bit lazy? So, well, now you say it. Yeah. You've had an amazing week, haven't you, Jazz? I think we shouldn't let the hour pass without talking a little bit about your weird Twitter week this week and what's happened for you.
It's been a very odd one. I think obviously because of everything that's been going on around the George Floyd murder and the Black Lives Matter movement and things, people have become a lot more sort of aware of how they can make changes and how, you know, they can just have better practice in their lives generally and in their classrooms particularly. I mean, it's something I go on a lot about, having access to diverse children's literature within classrooms, because growing up myself, I really loved books. That was my, you know, sort of solace from a bit of a turbulent childhood. And I never ever really saw myself in any of the characters that I read about. And then I know, Ed, I was reading your blog that you did, and I'm a massive Harry Potter fan, and I'd have loved for there to be a character in that book that I could have resonated with. And I know that JK's always said, oh, well, you know, I never ever said that Hermione wasn't black, or, you know, but the artistry on the cover does tell you otherwise. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it would be really, really good to have more. And there is a lot more nowadays, there definitely is. But it's something I'm always pushing for and trying to get books out there, and people just knowing how that they can sort of encourage the conversations about race as well in a nurturing way. And, you know, I've had a lot of people say to me really funny things this week, like, oh, thank you for being so nice about it and answering questions in a really kind way. And it's like, actually, I understand a lot of people of colour are really angry and, you know, they're fed up, they are, but I think the majority of people just want everyone to understand, and we can't do that before having these open dialogues and this communication. And I think particularly in education, it's something that really needs to take place now. Just a sort of keyhole into that for me has been through children's literature, because it's just something that I think really brings people together. You know, stories and books, it's the lifeblood of education and of togetherness, if you will. And I was talking to somebody yesterday actually who read this book, Little Bad Man. I've not long read this. It's a fantastic book, and it's by somebody who's got a Pakistani background. And the person who read the book was like, oh, I'm going to try and make these things in the book called Gulab Jamun. And they were like, I've never heard of it before, and I don't know where to get the recipe, but I'm going to get stuck in. And I was like, that is the importance of this. That's why it's so important to have these books that have got that touch on like lots of different cultures and have representations, because how much more open would we all be if everybody just, you know, took a little bit of that into their lives. And I think I'm really sort of trying to push it forward, and I made a few book lists, and apparently a lot of them have sold out on Amazon. I've been getting messages from people saying the books aren't there anymore, and I'm like, I'm kind of sorry, but I'm really happy about that, to be fair. So get some diverse children's literature in your classrooms, please, because I think it's really going to help. You've got to start from the ground up. It's going to help have those important conversations about race.
Yeah.
Something that's interesting there is that I mean, people were so grateful for the resources that you shared, Jazz, and that was lovely to see. There are lots of people, particularly your whole class guided reading ones, based on the "I Have a Dream" speech and the Rap by Common. You know, people were like, "This is amazing! This is amazing!" And I think it is amazing and well done. And to some extent, why weren't you doing that already, people? Because I mean, half the difficulty of planning a decent guided reading session is choosing a great text, isn't it? If you get the right text, the session writes itself. If you've got the wrong text, what can you do? You're kind of stuffed, really. So I think there's a huge, and I'm going to use the word if no one else would, there's a huge ignorance in the profession about diversity and how important it is. Jazz, you work in a school that is majority white, I think. But it's not important just for the black child to see black children.
Like, my kids didn't really even think about a lot of the stuff that we covered in those lessons until we discussed it. And they were like, Miss, people treat you like that. People say things like that about you. And I was like, yeah. And I think it hits home a lot more when you realise that someone you know could be affected by that. Because I think a lot of people are quite detached from the thought of racism happening and it was good for them as well, because I'm quite passionate about using things like rap, obviously without expletives, music as an expression of culture as well. And I think people find rap music quite scary because you think, oh, there's going to be loads of swearing in it, there's going to be loads of like negative connotations and things about women that are horrible and stuff like that. But actually there's a lot of like really deep sort of poetic lines in rap music, and that's why I included that common one, because it links so closely to the I Have a Dream speech by Martin Luther King. And the kids were like, we're listening to a rap song in a reading lesson. And I was like, yeah, we are. And they loved it. And it was, they're all like trying to learn the words and things. And I think it as well, again, embeds that, you know, everyone can enjoy this culture and we can all look at the different things we bring to the table and we can all celebrate those things. So I think that's really important. But like you said, a lot of people don't know where to start. And that I mentioned to someone the other day, and they were just like, I don't know who to ask for these things. And I was like, well, reach out to people of different cultures. I used the example of my friend Ashley Booth. He gets hundreds of messages every day, people asking him, because he's brilliant with teaching reading. You know, what do I do for this? How can I get reading for pleasure like bigger in our school? And I think, well, if you wanted somebody to help you learn about reading, you go and speak to someone who's really good at it, someone who's got a lot of experience. If you want to know what things you can do to embed more diverse culture in your curriculum, go and speak to people of different ethnic minorities. Ask a Black person, do you know any poetry? Do you know any art? Do you know how I can include this in a culturally sensitive way, and how I can address issues around race with my children, whether that be your own kids or your school. And obviously you do have to make sure that you clear everything with your senior leadership. But I do think that those conversations and those dialogues really need to be open right now, because it's going to make massive change in the future.
Yeah, my daughter's been doing civil rights. Some of her home learning was civil rights, and we had so many great conversations, actually, absolutely wonderful and eye-opening. And everything in the past week, on the back of what she'd just been learning, you said about ignorance, Ed, but sometimes I think people aren't aware of anything beyond them. Because we were talking about racism, and my daughter said, but I don't understand why it's still happening. I don't understand why it's still doing it. She said, and for her, she'd been studying civil rights, which was history, and we were having this, it's here, it's now, it's right now, and actually we have to act differently. She said, but everyone's the same. And I said, I know that, but actually we need other people to understand that, and the only way we can do that is actually by bringing it to a classroom, to the teaching and so on. I think what you're doing, Jazz, is phenomenal, absolutely brilliant, really phenomenal. Thank you.
Don't you think as well, though, that sort of teacher training, universities, colleges, etc., need to look at this as well? Because, you know, I've done a lot of work on gender equality, and before I did the documentary, it wasn't anything I'd ever thought of before. Because when you do your teacher training, they talk to you about literacy and numeracy, but basically they talk to you about how you're going to deliver it, what the objectives are for doing that. They don't talk to you about, you know, you need to teach a range of diverse books, we need to look at a range of diverse people within science and history, etc. So I think that's something where it needs to start as well. You're absolutely right, Toria. We're just not aware sometimes until something like this happens.
But that's why I love Twitter as a platform for educators, because I think I'm really passionate about the fact that actually schools can sometimes be very inward looking and thinking, actually, and teachers, we figured it out. This is what we do. This is how it is. The way that we become outward looking and we learn about global education, and is by connecting with each other. You know, I'm so grateful, as I say, for learning about, you know, the various books, diversity through Jazz, gender equality, things that, you know, when I started teaching 20 years ago, it wasn't on my radar. It just wasn't. And I don't know that it's on a lot of people's radars that aren't connecting like this on a daily basis with other educators around the world. That's why I'm utterly passionate about people connecting, because I think it changes education and therefore will change the world as we move forward.
Yeah. And I agree what you said there about it starting from sort of teacher training. I've been a few universities have reached out to me this week actually, asking my opinion on things and whether I could like maybe even come in and speak and stuff. And I think that's a really great place to start, because if you have all the, say, 200 plus students you might have at one university at one time, go out and understand the importance of having a really diverse approach to the way that you teach and having diverse literature and things like that, can, you know, it'll spread. And I think amongst educators, people are generally quite passionate in having those sort of equal, you know, classrooms and conversations. And I think it feels different this time. It feels as if people really want to genuinely make a change. But I do hope that these conversations keep happening. It can't just be tokenistic that people are talking about it now, and in a couple of weeks it's like, oh well, you know, Black Lives Matter's not trending on Twitter anymore, so we don't have to have those black books in our classroom. This needs to be something that's threaded through. It's ingrained in the curriculum and in the way that people you know, go about their daily lives. It needs to be something that we're always talking about and we're always addressing ourselves about. And
she's frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's something which, for the most awful reason, that door is wide open this week. And you know, what I'm trying to think is how do we get a foot in that door and make sure that it stays open? Because it's something I've been passionate about for years, but I've never heard so many conversations about representation as I have this week. Richard on our comments board here saying that she back?
Oh, back.
Yeah, Richard,
maybe come back.
The way he's spoken to still to this day, for because he's Irish, because he has an Irish accent, has got him. And I think when I think back to my schooling experience in the 1970s and 80s, it was absolutely normal, acceptable. It was part of the gang, part of culture to make jokes about Irish people being stupid and Welsh people being thieves. And I don't know what we said about people from the Isle of Wight, but I doubt it was complimentary. That was part of our culture, was shared stereotypes and shared forms of abuse, you might say. That was social currency for the 13-year-old Finch. And I'm not proud of it, and I didn't like it at the time. I felt it was uncomfortable, but I didn't know what the alternative was. You know, it'd be good, wouldn't it, if we could not just think. I mean, I wrote a blog because of the conversations we were having about representation of black people in literature. But I could have written it about Asian people, and I could have written it about Native American. I mean, the books are out there, the resources are out there. So, you know, I do challenge people not to think of it purely as a black thing, but actually about inclusive language around sexuality, around gender, around race in a much wider term. Difficult. I mean, it's an awful lot of balls to juggle, isn't it? But that's the job we got tasked with.
And also, I feel as well, Ed, sometimes if you don't know too much about it, you don't want to try and bring it into the classroom in case you get something wrong or say something wrong, or use the wrong language.
But I think that's Gaz's point, which is why we need to be connecting with each other and asking advice from people, you know, other people. And I think that's so important, so that we do get it right and that we don't avoid, you know, it's not, we need to actually confront the issues as opposed to avoid them in case we get them wrong.
Yeah.
I wonder whether sometimes there's a perception, though, that to champion a particular group, you have to belong to that group. And I think that there's a real danger of, I can't really step into this argument, or I can't say what I think because I'm not black, or I'm not a woman, or I'm not gay. And I think that some sense of, can I speak? And I don't think it's about speaking for others, but I think it's speaking alongside and speaking with others that will keep this kind of conversation alive.
Jazz, what would you say to that? If somebody said, well, I don't know what I should say about race because I'm not, well, they would say I'm not racialized, wouldn't they? Because
well, it's an interesting one, actually, and it's something that I've been asked a lot this week. I've had so many people DMing me, and I think that's because people don't want to have this conversation out loud. They're worried about being judged and saying the wrong thing. And I completely understand that. I understand a lot of people are trying to be sensitive, but I think these conversations can't happen behind closed doors. People all need to see them and hear them, and we all need to chip in. But in terms of what you were saying about, say, if you were white and you were trying to talk about black and ethnic minorities and anything to do with race, I don't think that there's anything wrong with it at all. Like, I bring up my friend Ashley Booth. He's a very white male and doesn't necessarily have any diverse history in his family, that not that I know of anyway, but he's always championing books and diverse children's literature and having those conversations. I mean, I remember sitting in one of his classes back when I was in LSA, and he'd said something about, we were discussing the civil rights movement, and said something about somebody being black, and a kid turned around to me and was like, can he say that? And I was like, yes. Why people can talk about race, you know, the conversations need to happen. We need more people on our side championing these discussions and thinking about how we can improve and move forward. And like I said, if you're not comfortable at first, reach out to people, find out what the right things are to say. Ask them, can you look over this lesson plan? Because I don't know if it's appropriate. Would this offend anybody? Can you explain why? But until people ask those questions, everyone's sort of like hiding in the shadows and saying, well, you know, I'm not racist, but I just don't really want to say anything about it. We need to say things about it. We need to be speaking up. And that's why this is a time I feel like it's a bit different to everyone at every other time, where more people are saying, like, I want to come forward, I want to speak, I want to help. So the biggest thing I would say to people is reach out. We need those links. We need that communication. And ultimately, we need that togetherness. We need people to work together to defeat this horrible thing that we're dealing with at the moment. If you're worried or unsure or anxious about teaching or talking about it or discussing it, find somebody who's got lived experience who can help.
Great advice, that.
It is great advice. And I think as well, anybody, doesn't matter what, can be a champion for anybody else. And I think that's really important. That's something to remember.
I think this needs to be a longer conversation, Mark, don't you?
I do. I think, well, hopefully, maybe Jazz would like to come back another time and we can actually focus a whole session on this, because I think it is really important that we don't just, as you say, do it now and forget about it and it's gone. It's got to keep coming back. We've got to have that conversation. And it's got to keep coming back.
I do appreciate how many people are being so reflective right now. I think that's so important. So to anybody who has taken a bit of time to think about, you know, maybe similarly to Ed, things that you might have done in the past that aren't as acceptable as you might have thought they were, and how you can improve your practice. I think, you know, round of applause to you. It can only get better, but we just need to make sure that we keep pushing it on and it doesn't just be all and end all this week sort of thing.
Yeah,
I'm just
people go to get your Padlet. That's you've made such a beautiful thing.
Talk
about that for a minute or two and tell us where we can go to see it.
No worries. The Padlet is basically from the thread that happened the other day. That's it. There it is. That's everyone's thoughts. It's just, I asked people to put their top tips for bubbling. It is color coded. It's the pink's well-being. The green is early years, year 1 bubbles. The yellow are year 6 bubbles. The blue are to do with key worker bubbles, purple hygiene, and white are resources. Feel free to add to it, and hopefully it will alleviate everyone's sort of anxieties, thoughts. I've put out a post on my Twitter feed which links to the Padlet. It's within there. So I really, really hope that it helps. But as I say, please feel free to add anything to that. I've put on a link to Graham's Padlet from last week as well, the PSHE one, which is fantastic. So yes, I really hope that it helps, because I think, you know, if people know that bubbling is not horrific, then that's a good thing, because it's not. And there's so many good bits of guidance there, like make sure you wear warm layers if you have your windows and doors open.
And then there's the fantastic blog from Liam there as well, which is a good read as well, and I would encourage you to people to read that. It is very, very.
Liam, is that your
school hall, isn't it? Look at that.
That is the school hall, yes.
How many kids in the school?
3.
We've got just under 100 on roll currently, so from reception up to year 6.
And how many have you got, Toria?
I've got. You can do the maths. 4 times. Just wait. 6 classes in 4 year groups. It's a lot of children.
It's a lot of children. Imagine.
Yeah. I'm just thinking I have 132 just in my year 4 year group. So yes, it's.
Yeah.
My brain's just died actually. 6 3s are 180 times 4. It's a lot.
Sunday
A lot.
morning, Toria, don't worry about it.
Yeah, different challenges, I think.
Yes.
Really, really different. And I think that's what's been the interesting thing. And that's why I liked the top tips on the Padlet, because you have got, like your school, a very, very small school, and the way that people have had to approach it there. And then you've got huge schools and actually how you've had to approach it there. They're completely different. But I love the way everyone's come together. And there's a real unity about it. You know, the fact that we've come together as a staff, we've come together as a school, but also we've come together as educators to say, let's help each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Teachers are pretty amazing, really, aren't they?
Phenomenal. We work for the best profession people.
Yeah. We need some more love.
Yeah.
Love the teachers.
We do.
We did love last week, Graham. What are we doing tonight? What's the theme?
What tonight? Give us a word, Toria. Give us a word. Any word.
Chaos.
There we go.
Yeah. have you been to our Sunday night sing along, Toria?
I have.
It does describe it fairly well.
There we go. Our theme is chaos tonight, then, Ed.
Songs on the subject of chaos. I will have a think.
I'm looking forward to it. I do like your Sunday night renditions. They're very exciting.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm not sure anybody else does, but
No,
That's the highlight of the week.
Enjoyable. If no one's been, you've got to come along and join. Thoroughly enjoyable.
It's keeping the morale up, guys.
Well,
Really
keep the morale up. I think
And it's great relaxation before Monday.
Yeah. Settle the nerves.
Oh, all right. Well, thank you for coming along and sharing your thoughts with us, and hopefully we can keep that conversation going as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Jazz, Toria, and Liam. You've been awesome.
Brilliant.
What you're doing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later, everyone. Bye.
Bye.